Tell me which stone is fake, and keep the crown. Go on, mop. Choose the fake and it will be yours. There are no fakes, and I want to see you wrong.
I'm cleaning, that's all.
You were counting the stones. I watched you count them. So count them for real.
11 at night. The viewing room of Ardent and Vale. Colette had come in late and drunk on the certainty of the very rich killing time before a car.
15 stones. My mother's crown. Pick the fake and I'll sign it over, in front of the cameras, because there is no fake, and I want to watch a cleaner be wrong.
He lifted it and tilted it to the light, slow, turning it so the lamp came through each stone in turn.
Well?
Third from the center, left side. That one's fake, and it's a good fake, which scare you.
Colette Vaughn stopped laughing. You're guessing, she said. I don't guess about stones. How does a cleaner know a stone? The same way you know your mother's voice on a bad phone line, Nathan said. You don't. Not with your head, but something in you does, and it's never wrong. That's very poetic for a janitor, Colette said. It's not poetry. It's 40 years of somebody else's hands teaching mine. Your mother's real stone had a soul. This one's got a resume. I set it down. You don't have to believe me. You have to believe a lab you've never met. Go find one before tomorrow. You'd really give up a fortune on a dare? It was never mine to keep, I said. It's yours. I'm just the only one in the room who can hear it screaming. To understand why a laughing woman going quiet was the most dangerous sound I heard that whole year, you have to know how a man who empties bins learned to hear a stone lie. Nathan Reyes cleaned the auction house at night and was invisible, which is the natural state of a man who cleans. He had a son, Mateo, 10 years old, who saw the world in light. Real or fake? Mateo asked most mornings, holding a marble to the window. Nathan would look. Real glass. See how it takes the light and gives it back with a little life in it? And this one? Plastic. Gives it back dead. Nothing ever happened inside a piece of plastic. Light doesn't lie, Dad, Mateo would say, and go off to school. And it was the one place in Nathan's whole careful life where he let the secret out, one marble at a time, to the one person he trusted with it. Why don't you tell anybody else, Mateo asked once. That you can do the marble thing? Because nobody's paying a night cleaner to know stones, and a man who knows more than his paycheck says makes people nervous. That's dumb. That's the world, mijo. It looks at the mop and decides it knows the whole man. I don't. No, I said, and had to look away for a second. You look at the light. You're the only one who ever did. Then teach me the whole thing, Mateo said. Not just marbles, the real stones. When you're bigger. You keep saying that. Because when I teach you the whole thing, I said, it stops being a game between us and starts being who you are. And once you can hear a lie in a stone, mijo, you can't unhear it. It'll cost you, same as it cost me. I wanted you to have a few more years of just marbles first. I don't want more marbles, Mateo said. I want to hear what you hear. I didn't have an answer for that. Turned out I wouldn't have to teach him the hard way. A man in a good coat was about to. He'd gotten it from Ezra Stern. Ezra cut gemstones for 50 years in a back room over a pawn shop, and he did not sell them. He revealed them. He took in an angry kid who'd been thrown out of everywhere and handed him a rough, ugly pebble the first day. What's it worth? Ezra asked. Nothing, it's a rock. Hold it to the lamp, turn it. Now what's it worth? I turned it, and deep inside the ugly rock, a little fire woke up. More than I thought, I said. Everything's worth more than you thought, if you know how to hand it the light, Ezra said. Here's the whole trade, and I'll say it once, then it's yours. A true stone gives back the light it was given, and never more. A made stone, a furnace stone, gives back too much, too clean, too eager. It never grew in the ground, so it's got no flaws to slow the light down. And a thing with no flaws is always lying about something. That's a lot of sermon for a rock. You'll cut yourself into it, Ezra said. 50 years. It teaches you the sermon whether you want it or not. He put 2 stones in my palm one afternoon, near identical. One's real, one's a furnace. Tell me, and tell me how. I turned them both to the lamp. One threw the light back with a little life, a little hesitation, like it had somewhere to be. The other threw it back instantly, all of it, eager. This one, I said, pointing at the eager one. It's fake. It gives back too much. How do you know too much from just enough? Because the real one, I said slowly, acts like it's got a history. Little flaws. It slows down. Ezra smiled. The only time I ever saw it. That's the whole secret of stones and people both, kid. The flawless ones are lying. Trust the thing with a history you can see. Trust the stone that slows the light down. Ezra taught me inclusions, the tiny feathers and crystals trapped inside a real gem, the fingerprint no two stones share and no furnace can fake. And Ezra did not care that I was who I was. When a dealer once said something in the shop, Ezra set down his wheel. "In here," he said, "a stone's a stone and a man's a man, and I judge both the same way. By what's actually inside, not what's on the surface. You don't like that. There's a whole city out there that agrees with you. Go stand in it." "Does it make you mad?" I asked him once. "The way they treat you? A man with your hands?" "Mad's a furnace," Ezra said. "Burns hot, makes nothing real." I put the mad into the wheel. 50 years of it. You know what 50 years of swallowed mad makes, kid? If you press it right. He held up a finished stone, and the fire in it was unbelievable. "It makes that. Now stop asking me about men and start asking me about the rock." He worked me hard that first year. He'd hand me a tray of 100 stones and one furnace fake hidden in it. "Find the liar," he'd say, and time me. The first month, I missed it every time. The 6th month, I found it in a minute. The first year, in 10 seconds, hand to the lamp, and I'd point without a word. "How do you know so fast now?" he asked. "I stopped looking for the fake," I said. "I look for the true ones, and the liar's the one that isn't." Ezra nodded slow. "Now you're a lapidary. Everybody hunts the lie. A real one learns the truth so well, the lie can't hide in the room." Ezra died when Mateo was a baby. The back room closed. Nobody pays a man to reveal the fire in a pebble. So I cleaned floors, and I folded the trade small, and I did not tell a soul I could hold a stone to a lamp and hear it lie. Then Ardent and Vale took in the Vaughn tiara. It came in a week before the sale, insured for a fortune, cataloged as a highlight of the season. And every night I cleaned around it, and every night something scratched at me, until on the second night I made myself look the way Ezra taught. The third stone from the center gave the light back too clean. I remember standing over it the second night, Buffer humming behind me, arguing with myself. "Not your crown," I said under my breath. "Not your fight, not your fortune. Push the mop." But Ezra was in my chest. The way a teacher gets in you and never leaves, saying a maidstone remembers nothing. And I could not stand the idea of a thing that remembered nothing sitting in the place where a stone with a whole history was supposed to be. It was almost physical, like a wrong note Winnie couldn't unhear, except the Winnie was me and the note was a fortune. I didn't touch it. I just knew. And I knew one more thing, from the day catalog on the specialist's desk. The tiara had been cleaned and reset 3 weeks before it came to auction, in the private workshop of the family jeweler, a man named Laurent Fisk. The last hands on that crown before the auction house received it belonged to the one man the family trusted completely. I looked up the tiara in the day catalog after everyone left. The house had it estimated low. A burden, an unsellable grand of a thing, exactly the story Fisk had sold the widow. But I knew what those 14 true stones were, and I knew what a center stone like the one that should have been there was worth, and I had to sit down on a supply crate for a minute. "That's not a burden," I said to the empty room. "That's a house, a whole house, hanging on a velvet stand, and somebody priced it like a hatbox." Then Colette Vaughn walked in drunk and made a game of the cleaner. "And that is where you came in." "My jeweler," Colette said slowly, "has served my family 30 years. "I know. That's the part that should scare you." I set the tiara back on the velvet and stepped away from it, hands open, so she could see I wanted nothing. "Get the third stone tested, not by me, by someone who has never met your jeweler, and do it before the sale. And if you're wrong, then I'm a lunatic cleaner and you had a good laugh. But if I'm right, somebody sold your mother's real stone a long time ago and prayed nobody would ever hold this crown to a lamp." She left without another word and took her champagne. And I stood there and knew I'd just done a thing a man who empties bins does not get to do for free. Mateo asked me about it at breakfast, because he read my face like a marble. "You found a fake thing at work. How do you know that?" "You've got the light in your eyes, the one you get when a marble's lying." He chewed. "Did you tell them?" "I told the wrong person, a rich woman who laughed." "Then tell a right person." "It's not that simple, mijo. Light doesn't lie," Mateo said, "but people do. So you have to make the light talk louder than the people." 10 years old. He went back to his cereal, and I sat there, having been handed the entire strategy by a boy who still lost his shoes twice a week. I couldn't let it go. That was the hinge of it. And that stretch, the middle, is where my caution ran clean out. For 2 more nights, I cleaned around that crown and did not sleep. Then, on the 3rd night, I did the thing that let Fisk win. I took the tiara into the specialist room where the good lamp was, and the loop, and the polariscope, and I examined the fake up close, because I wanted to be certain before a rich woman's lawyer asked me how certain I was. I was certain 3 ways. Under the loop, it was flawless in the wrong way, clean where a natural stone carries its history. Under the polariscope, it behaved like a furnace child. And it weighed a hair wrong for its size, the small tell of a material pretending to be a denser one. 3 questions, 3 times the same answer. The stone was made. I stood in that specialist room at 3 a.m, holding a fortune, and knowing exactly what I was, which was a man who could not leave a lie alone. Put it down, Nathan, I said to myself, out loud, the way Ezra used to say things out loud so his hands would listen. Put it down and walk away, and let the rich people rob the rich people. I put it down. I did not walk away. That was the difference between me and a smart man, and it cost me everything, and I would do it again. You always tell me not to touch things at other people's houses, Mateo said the next morning, because I'd told him, tired, the outline of it. I know, but you touched the crown. I did. So you broke your own rule. I did, mijo. Grown men break their own rules when they can't stand a lie. Then they pay for it. I'm paying for it now. That's the part I need you to see, so you do it smarter than your old man someday. I ruffled his hair. Break the rule for the truth if you have to. Just know the bill comes and pay it standing up. I put it back, and I did the decent man stupid thing. I called Laurent Fisk. The center left stone of the Vaughn tiara is a synthetic, I told him. A good one. Whoever last had the crown made the swap. It should come out of the sale. How interesting, Fisk said. And who am I speaking to? I clean the auction house. I know stones. A cleaner who knows stones. A soft laugh, almost warm. My friend, I have certified the Vaughn collection for 30 years. I hold current lab documents for every stone in that crown. And you are a man with after-hours access, telephoning me anonymously to say one is fake. Do you know what that sounds like from where I sit? It sounds like a man building an alibi, like someone who has already made a swap, or is about to. Like someone who has already made a swap, or is about to. You didn't say I'm wrong, I said. A man who's sure his stones are real says you're wrong. You said I sound like a thief. That's a different sentence, and we both heard it. There was a small silence on the line, the kind a man makes when he realizes the cleaner is not as dumb as the coveralls promised. An innocent man says, show me. You just told me what it sounds like. The warmth went out like a switched lamp. I'd be very careful, cleaner. I have papers. You have a key card and a grudge. Guess whose word the police take? I hung up. My hands were cold, and I understood 2 things. Fisk was guilty, because he never denied the stone was fake. He simply arranged the room so the man who found the fake became the man who made it. And the sale was in 3 days. The proof was not in the crown, which now had my fingerprints on it. It was somewhere Laurent Fisk could not reach. A stone has a fingerprint. If the real center stone had ever been documented by an independent lab, a plotting diagram of its inclusions sat in an archive, dated, numbered, describing a stone the synthetic could never match. Fisk could forge a fresh certificate. He could not reach into a lab's archive and change a report that had sat there for decades. I needed the old report, and to find it, I needed someone inside a lab. I thought of Priya Naidu. Priya was the youngest gemologist at Ardent and Vale, the one who actually knew where things were filed. She had once caught me looking at a sapphire through the case glass and, instead of shooing me off, asked what I saw. The center Vaughn stone is a synthetic, I told her, outside in the morning. I can prove it under a scope, but my prints are on the crown now, and I need proof that points somewhere other than me. Priya looked at me a long time. Fisk pulled the Vaughn insurance file from our records 2 weeks ago, she said. Said he needed it for the appraisal. I logged it out to him myself. She heard her own words land. I handed him the paper trail, and I never saw it come back. The house copy's gone, but the insurance file was only a copy. The original report lives at the lab that wrote it, and labs don't shred. I can't pull it for you. My name would be on it. You don't pull it. You give me one thing and forget you did. I held her eyes. A report number. She gave it to me. From memory. From the day she logged the file out. A long string of digits and a lab name. The fingerprint of the fingerprint. Why are you helping me? I asked her. This could cost you everything. Because you looked at a sapphire through my case glass 2 years ago and told me it was heat-treated, and you were right, and no one had trained you, and I have thought about that ever since. Priya said, there are maybe 5 people in this city who can do what you just did to that crown from across a room. 4 of them have degrees and offices. The 5th empties the bins. I'd like the 5th one to still have a name when this is over. You might lose yours. Then I lose it, doing the one true thing, she said, instead of filing 30 years of other people's lies. Go, make the light talk. Instead of filing 30 years of other people's lies, go, make the light talk. If this works, I said, you should get the credit. You pulled the thread. If this works, I get to keep believing the work means something, Priya said. That's the only credit I want. Now stop being noble on my time and go save a widow's crown. That was the pressure turning. Because the same morning, the sale calendar changed. The Vaughn tiara had been moved up, tomorrow. A private pre-sale offer, generous, quiet, and the crown would change hands before anyone could scope a single stone. Fisk was not waiting to be caught. He was closing the window. Tuong song, no chua hi bat dao. I called Priya from a payphone outside the hardware store. Because I'd left my own phone in the box the guard carried out. He moved the sale up, I said. It's tomorrow. I know. I saw the calendar. Her voice was tight. Nathan, if that crown leaves the building, it surfaces in 5 years in another city with clean paper, and the fake becomes the truth, and you become the crazy man who cried wolf. Then it can't leave the building. You can't stop it. You're fired and banned. I can't, I said, but a woman with her name on the crown can. I just have to get 3 sentences into a hand she'll actually open. Then it got worse, at the smallest door. I went to work that night, and Fisk had already been there. He'd gone to the head of the house with a security still, time-stamped, of the night cleaner alone in the specialist's room at 3 a.m. with the Vaughn tiara in his bare hands. There he is, Fisk had told them. A man with no business touching the collection, alone, unsupervised, handling the most valuable lot in the sale. And now, this same man is telephoning people with a story that one of the stones is fake. Of course he says it's fake. He's describing his own work in advance so that when the swap is found, the record already blames a phantom. It was airtight, because every piece of it was true, and every truth was turned inside out. I had held the crown, alone, on camera. I had called people saying a stone was fake. My fingerprints were on the fake. Every fact I'd found became a fact I'd faked. K.O. Mott. The security director wasn't a bad man. He looked almost sorry at the loading door. For what it's worth, he said, you always did good work here. I still am, I said. You just can't see it yet. Check the 3rd stone in the Vaughn crown when this is over. 3rd from the center, left side. Remember, I said it before anybody made me. I can't do anything with that. I know. But you'll remember it. That's all I need tonight. Somebody in this building remembering I said it first. I was walked out of Ardent and Vale that night with a box of my things and a guard at each elbow. Banned. My keycard cut in half in front of me. The word thief following me out the loading door into the rain. I sat in my car in the loading lot and let the engine stay dead. I thought about Ezra's 4 words, which I'd kept in a pocket of myself for years as a plain rule about optics. Now, fired and soaked and holding nothing, I heard a second meaning in them. A true stone gives back the light it was given, and never more. I'd given the truth everything I had, and it had come back changed, ugly, pointed at me, because a made man like Fisk had shaped the light before it ever reached the stone of my word. But there was one stone he could not shape. The real center stone had grown in the ground 1 billion years ago and been documented once by strangers, and its fingerprint was sitting in an archive under a number a frightened gemologist had handed me from memory. I got home before dawn and sat on the edge of Mateo's bed and watched him sleep with a fistful of marbles on the nightstand, sorted by light even in the dark. He woke up halfway. Dad, you're all wet. It's raining. You lost the job. I lost the job. Because of the crown? Because of the crown. He sat up, 10 years old, serious as a judge. Is the crown lady going to get her real stone back? I don't know yet. I made a mistake. I touched a thing I should have only looked at. Light doesn't lie, Dad, Mateo said. You always say. So the light already knows the truth? You just have to find where the light wrote it down. I stared at my son. Out of the mouths of 10-year-olds, the light had written it down, years ago, in a lab's archive, under a number a frightened gemologist had handed me from memory. I couldn't walk into that lab. I was a fired cleaner with a motive now, but Colette Vaughn could. And a person deserves to swing their own bat. Reaching Colette was the hardest thing I did, because Fisk had gotten to her first. So I didn't call. I wrote 3 sentences and gave them to the one person who could carry them clean, Priya, who slipped them into Colette's hand at the preview with no fingerprints on it but her own courage. Do not trust the cleaner, and do not trust the jeweler. Here's a lab and a report number from your own mother's insurance file. Call the lab yourself and ask them to read you the plot of the stone they documented before anyone sells you a paper that says it matches. She told me, weeks later, how the call went. I almost didn't dial, Colette said. You were a thief, as far as I knew. But your note asked me to check a number, not to trust you. So I read the lab the digits, and I said, describe the stone. And a stranger on the phone described inclusions, a feather, a little crystal, a fingerprint, in a stone my mother owned before I was born. And I looked at the 2 clean thing in the crown on my table, and I understood I had been robbed in my own family, slowly, by the man who did my mother's eulogy flowers. Colette Vaughn had spent her whole life being handed conclusions by men in good suits. She was drunk and bored the night she laughed at a cleaner. She was neither, the morning she called the lab. She read them the number. She asked them to describe the stone. And a stranger in an archive, reading a report filed decades before any of this, described a natural stone with a specific pattern of inclusions, a fingerprint, a little frozen history that could not possibly be the 2 clean thing sitting third from the center in her mother's crown. Then she did the thing that made her more than a name on an insurance schedule. She did not call the police, not first. She called a meeting, stopped the private sale, and summoned Laurent Fisk to authenticate the crown to her face, in front of an independent gemologist and a lawyer she would identify only as counsel. I was not in the room. I had asked not to be. It was not the cleaner's win. She let Fisk do the thing he did best. She let him lay out 30 years, his current documents, his warm certainty that the crown was flawless, and the cleaner was a criminal. Then she set the old lab report on the table. Fisk was good. To pretend he broke would make Colette a fool for trusting him 30 years, and she was nobody's fool. She had been robbed, which is a wholly different thing from being foolish. I hold a current certificate, Fisk said, issued this month, confirming the center stone is natural. He produced it, crisp, sealed, official. Certificates supersede old plots. Stones are re-examined, and we know for a fact a man was alone with his crown after hours, a man who admits he can cut and swap stones, whose prints are on it. If a synthetic is in that setting, he put it there, and this old plot is exactly the document a clever thief would wave to sell his story. He looked at the empty chair where a cleaner was not sitting. You had a man in your building for months who knew stones and emptied your bins. Ask yourself why. You are describing a forger, Laurent, Colette said. A forger needs a plate to fake an inclusion into an archive. There is no plate for a stone. A stone's fingerprint grows over 1 billion years underground. So tell me how the cleaner faked a 1-billion-year-old pattern into a report your own certificate borrows its number from. I am describing a man with access and motive, Fisk said, not a geologist. You're describing the man who found your fake, she said. That's not the same as the man who made it. However badly you need the room to confuse them. However badly you need the room to confuse them. The independent gemologist she'd hired cleared his throat. For what it's worth to the record, Mrs. Vaughn, I put the center stone under my own loupe an hour ago. It is a synthetic, a very fine one, laboratory grown, and consistent in every respect with the invoice from Halcyon Gems. I would stake my license on it. You see, Colette said to Fisk, almost gently, it isn't the cleaner's word anymore. It's 2 labs, an invoice, and a stone that won't stop telling on you. You taught me to trust the paper, Laurent. I'm only doing what you taught me. You have no idea what you're accusing me of, Fisk said, and his voice cracked on the last word. The first crack anyone had ever heard in 30 smooth years. I have a lab report, a forged certificate, An invoice and a stone that doesn't match itself, Colette said. I know exactly what I'm accusing you of. I'm accusing you of looking at my dying mother's crown and seeing a shopping list, and of being so sure a cleaner couldn't stop you that you dared a room full of people to check. She slid the certificate back across the table. A cleaner stopped you, Laurent. Sit down. And the room tilted. It was KO high, and it nearly won, because a fresh sealed certificate beats an old plot in the eyes of anyone who doesn't know that paper can be printed and seals can be bought. If the story had only 2 pieces, Laurent Fisk walks out, sells the crown, and keeps the fortune he cut out of it years ago. But there were 3. Colette Vaughn kept her voice level and low. She turned Fisk's shiny certificate over and read the report number aloud. This is the lab's response to my inquiry this morning, she said, sliding an email across. I read them the number printed on your certificate. They have no such report in their registry. They never issued it. The number belongs to a report they wrote in 1994 for a natural stone with the plot you see on the table, commissioned by my mother. She set down a second page. And this is an invoice from a synthetics house called Halcyon Gems for 1 laboratory-grown stone cut to specific dimensions, dated last year, billed to a company council has established is yours. So here is my question, Laurent, and you will answer it in front of the people who watched you appraise my mother's jewelry for 30 years. The lab documented a natural stone in 1958 and again in 1994, before I was old enough to wear it. Did the cleaner reach back 60 years to grow that fingerprint into their archive? Or did you order a fake, drop it in my mother's crown during a cleaning only you were trusted to do, and forge a paper to cover the stone you already sold? 3 links. The fingerprint, alive in a lab archive no one in that room could reach. The window, the single stretch when Fisk, and no one else, had the crown to himself. And the concealment, in his own forged certificate and his own invoice for the fake. Her last question gathered all 3 and asked for nothing the stone would not swear to on its own. And Laurent Fisk had nothing left to stand on. I want my lawyer, Fisk said. You'll have him, Colette said, but you'll also have this. Council has the Halcyon shipping records and the warehouse logs. We know what the private buyer was going to pay tomorrow, and we know what you told my mother's estate the crown was worth, and the 2 numbers are not close, Laurent. They're not in the same country. She stood. 30 years you did our flowers and our appraisals and our trusts, and you cut the heartstone out of the one thing my mother left me and dropped a furnace pebble in its socket. This is a coordinated attack, Fisk said, and stood, and something behind his eyes went flat and even. Too clean, the way a maidstone gives back light with no fire in it, and Colette saw it, because a fired cleaner had told her that a liar's calm is the calm of a thing that never grew. The authentication room should have finished it. It did not, because a beaten man with something still to lose is the most dangerous kind there is, and Laurent Fisk had a single move left, and he aimed it at a 10-year-old at a school gate, at the smallest, easiest target he could find. 2 days later, Mateo came home from school with something in his fist. A man gave me this, Dad, at the gate. A nice man in a good coat. He knew my name. I opened his fingers. A brilliant cut stone, folded in a scrap of paper, glittering cold. He said, give it to your dad. He said, tell him it's the real one. I held it to the window, out of 40 years of habit. It gave the light back too clean. A synthetic. And I understood the message with a clarity that stopped my blood. Fisk was telling me, in the only tongue cowards ever trust, that he could walk up to a 10-year-old at a school gate, that he dealt in stones, and could place one in a child's hand any afternoon he chose, and that a boy was so much easier to reach than an archive. I kept my face flat and calm because Mateo was watching, and a child reads a father's face the way he reads a marble in the light. Was he a bad man, Dad? Mateo asked. He knew my name. He was a scared man, I said, pretending to be a bad one. And he just handed me the last thing I needed. How is a rock the last thing you needed? Because a threat is a man's word, and a fake stone is a made thing, and made things remember nothing, except the invoice that made them, I said. He handed my son a receipt with his own fear on it. He handed my son a receipt with his own fear on it. I don't get it, Dad. He wanted to scare me quiet, but he did it by giving you a fake stone, and a fake stone comes from somewhere. Somebody cut it. Somebody sold it. Somebody wrote an invoice. I closed the paper over it. He speaks the one language I read fluently, mijo. He just forgot I can read it backward, all the way home to his door. All the way home to his door. Mateo was quiet a while. Are we safe, Dad? Really? I crouched to his eye level, the way the man in the good coat had. Except I was his father, and the difference was the whole point. You want the true answer or the easy one? True. Light doesn't lie. We don't either. The true answer is a scared man did a stupid thing today. And stupid scared men get caught. And this one just handed me the rope. You're safe because he made you the evidence. From now on, you walk with me or Mrs. Alvarez every day until it's done. And you keep that ear open. Deal? Deal, Mateo said, and shook my hand like a man, and I have never been prouder or more afraid at the same time. Nathan did not run, and he did not go to ground. I gave the stone, the fold of paper, and my son's description of a man in a good coat to Colette's counsel and to a detective who was already puzzling over how a trusted jeweler came to owe an invoice to a synthetics house. The gate had a camera. The school kept a visitor log. A frightened man who has just been caught with a forged certificate does not also get to appear, on film, pressing a lab-grown stone into the hand of the witness's child and walk away clean. After that came the slow legal machinery, which I will make quick, because nobody opens a video to hear about evidence motions. Halcyon Gems turned out to be Laurent Fisk. The real center stone, sold years ago, was traced through his own quiet channel and frozen pending return. And the Vaughn tiara was not the only crown Fisk had cleaned. 3 other old families learned, that season, why their heirlooms had appraised so low. No cuffs, no spectacle. A plea that kept Colette out of a trial and kept Mateo from ever explaining a school gate to a jury. A surrender of Halcyon. A bar from ever laying a hand on another collection. A felony to sit on Laurent Fisk for the rest of his smooth life. The law returned him exactly the light he had thrown, and not one ray past it. Nathan had never wanted the man ruined. He had wanted a stone read true. Colette Vaughn asked to meet the cleaner, not to hand him a crown. She came to a small apartment where a 10-year-old's marbles sat lined up on a windowsill, catching the afternoon, and she looked at them a long time. And then she did the thing the very rich almost never do. She apologized. I laughed at you, she said. I told you to pick the fake so I could watch you be wrong. You picked it in 9 seconds. You were the only person in my whole trusted world who told me the truth, the only one. And I had you walked out in the rain like something the storm dragged in, and I have thought about that every single day since. You checked it yourself, I said. That's the part that matters. You didn't take my word. You took the stones. You took the stones. I could have gotten you killed, Colette said. Walked out in the rain, accused, with a man like that free and angry. You didn't. You checked. That's more than the last 30 years of good suits ever did for your mother. I shrugged. Rich people took my teacher's whole life and never learned his name. You learned mine and said sorry in your own kitchen. Believe me, ma'am, that's rarer than the stone. Colette was quiet a moment. My mother would have liked you. She used to say the people who serve you see you more clearly than the people who dine with you. Smart woman. She trusted the wrong man with her stones. She trusted a man with a good coat and a warm voice. Same as anybody would, I said. The trick isn't never trusting. The trick is checking once, with somebody who can't be bought. You did that in the end. That's why you've still got 14 true stones and a jeweler in a cell instead of a whole crown of furnace glass and a nice thank you card. I'm not offering you my mother's crown. You wouldn't take it, and you shouldn't. She set a card on the table, not a check, which was the first sensible thing she did. I'm offering you a job no one at Arden and Vale can do. Come authenticate for the house. Read the stones. Get paid like a man who can do a thing almost no one alive can do. There's a condition, I said. Name it. Mateo had come to the table. He picked up the real thing, the recovered natural stone, warm and flawed and alive, and held it to the window and turned it, judging the way his father did, the way a dead cutter had. Light doesn't lie, Dad, Mateo said. And I understood the whole shape of the thing. In Ezra's back room, the 4 words had been a rule about how light bends through a stone. In a soaked loading lot, they had been a rule about what forcing a thing costs a man. In my son's hands, right now, a real stone lifted to a real window. They were about to be the only thing they had ever truly been. A true stone gives back the light it was given, and never more. The condition is, he comes with me. Some days, I said. He already reads light better than half the people you'll hire. He gets it from a man who never got paid for it. I'd like him to get paid for it. Colette took the stone from the boy's hand and tilted it to the window, the way a cleaner had once taught her to tilt a crown toward the truth. And she watched the fire wake in it, and she smiled at what she found. "Bring the boy," she said. "We'll need the eyes, and I have a feeling he sees more than most of the people I pay to look." "I do see more," Matteo told her, matter of fact, "but only about light. I'm bad at spelling." "Light is the harder subject," Colette said, and did not laugh. And I saw my son decide right there that this particular rich lady was all right. "Can I hold the real one again?" he asked me. "Slow, by the girdle, thumbs off the table." He held it to the window, and the fire woke, and he grinned. And I thought about a man over a pawnshop who died with no name on any door, and how his whole life had just landed, alive, in a 10-year-old's hand. That was the invitation. Not the champagne and the mop man and the crown thrown down for sport. The other one? Same man, same eyes, only the light had changed, and the light, as I like to remind my son, does not lie. He started the following week, in the daylight, at a good bench by a tall window, and on the good afternoons, his son sat beside him with a loupe too big for his eye, reading the memory of stones, the way 3 generations of a family the world had never bothered to notice had learned to read it. And somewhere, an old cutter who died with no name on any door was, at last, a little less forgotten. A little less forgotten. On his first Saturday at the bench, Matteo found a chipped diamond in a consignment lot that 2 junior appraisers had passed as flawless. "Dad, this one's lying. It gives back too much on the left side." I put it under the scope. He was right. A filled fracture, glass poured into a crack to hide it. "How'd you see that from there?" the floor manager asked, a little pale. "My grandpa taught my dad, and my dad taught me," Matteo said. 10 years old, and certain. Light doesn't lie. People fill the cracks. You just have to catch the light where the filling is. I looked at Colette across the room, and she looked at me, and neither of us said the obvious thing, which was that a dead man over a pawnshop had just spoken, in a boy's voice, in a house that would finally pay for the ears it had spent years walking past, in a house that would finally pay for the ears it had spent years walking past. Later, Colette caught me at the bench. "You could have kept the crown," she said. "That night," I offered. "In front of cameras. You'd have won the dare. And then it would have been a cleaner's crown that a court took back," I said. "This way, it's your mother's crown whole, understood, with her real stone coming home." I held a garnet to the light and watched it wake. "I didn't want the stone, ma'am. I wanted somebody to finally hear it. Turns out that somebody could be a 10-year-old with a loupe too big for his eye. That's worth more than any rock you own. Don't tell your insurer I said so." We drove home that night, the 2 of us, and Matteo held a recovered garnet up to the streetlights the whole way, naming which ones lied. "That sign's fake. That one's real. That headlight is lying to everybody." "Light doesn't lie, mijo," I said. "People bend it. Your whole job, if you want it, is to bend it back to true." "I want it." "I know. You've wanted it since the first marble. Welcome to the trade."